Today is Thursday, September 5th, and I'm just wondering if you'd enjoy going back into sports history for some of those weird and wonderful sports notes.
Star Power Smart Home Solutions, where cutting-edge technology meets effortless living. Control your entire home with just a tap on your smartphone. Adjust the lights, set the perfect temperature, and ensure your home is secure, all from the palm of your hand. Star Power has the experts that will transform your house into a secure, smart home. Experience the ultimate solution in comfort and security for your family. Get started at GetStarPower.com. Star Power, where innovation meets home.
What do you want from your favorite restaurant? Fantastic personal service, a cheery, welcoming, spotless atmosphere, and great food. The primest of beef, Wagyu and lamb, incredibly fresh seafood, lobster, salmon, shrimp. Hall of Fame food from a Hall of Fame restaurant. 2 locations of Bob's Steak and Chop House. The original Bob's on Lemon Avenue and the gorgeous new Bob's at Craig Ranch, McKinney.
And now, a word from our title sponsor.
Are all financial advisors fiduciaries? Fewer than you think. Not knowing could reduce your lifestyle. Hi, I'm Mitch Kramer, founder and CEO of Fluent Financial. A fiduciary is a regulatory term to reduce conflicts of interest in wealth management. A fiduciary always works in your best interest. A non-fiduciary advisor might put their compensation or company ahead of yours. At Fluent Financial, we are certified financial planners acting as fiduciary advisors. To learn more, go to fluentfinancial.com or Fluent Financial's YouTube channel.
Before we get to our sports stories, the NFL begins this weekend. It will be the first complete weekend of college and pro football game of the season. And we have started the picks of the poll. In fact, we started very nicely last weekend. We had a 5-3 weekend, including one game we recommended taking an underdog to win outright on the money line. It's easy to get the picks of the poll. First of all, it costs $125 for the entire season, and the picks are emailed to you every Friday around noon Central Time. Here's how you get the picks. You go to this website, justwonderingpodcast.com/picks. justwonderingpodcast.com/picks. Easy to sign up and join us for the football season for the picks of the poll. Okay, let's go back in history. This is one of my favorite stories of all time, I have to tell you that. Karen and Stan Sutton, 35 years ago, September 3rd, last weekend, sailed back into the San Francisco harbor under the Golden Gate Bridge, completing an incredible journey. The Suttons had just been married when they decided, before they started settling in and committing to jobs and family, they'd sail an around-the-world journey. They built their own boat, a 43-foot boat, and took off from San Francisco, heading around the world. Well, on this date they returned, nearly 8.5 years after they left. The Suttons encountered some boat trouble. They ran out of money, so they had to stop at various places and do odd jobs like diving for coral and teaching school and being tour guides and repairing refrigerators, of all things. And Karen, unfortunately, early in the journey, suffered from seasickness. Not good when you go around the world. And then, I wouldn't say this is a complicating factor, Karen got pregnant twice on the journey. And they gave birth to Elizabeth and Jennifer, who then joined them as they continued to sail around the world. And today, 8.5 years later, they were back at San Francisco with their family. Next, what is the toughest pitching loss in the history of baseball? Well, geez, we're covering a century and a half here. I'm going to suggest it happened on September 9th, 1965. That's 59 years ago. Bobby Hendley was starting for the Cubs. He's a pretty good pitcher, by the way. In the game, Hendley would allow only one base hit, and that was a bloop double in the seventh inning, and that runner didn't score. But a couple of innings earlier, he had walked Lou Johnson, the guy who also got the hit. Johnson was sacrificed at second, stole third, and scored when Cubs catcher Chris Krug's throw sailed into left field, an unearned run. Hendley would allow just that one hit in the game, but he would lose 1-0 because on the other side, Dodgers starting pitcher Sandy Koufax pitched a perfect game, striking out 14 of the 27 Cubs hitters he faced. By the way, one other terrific note here. Catching Koufax on this day was a guy named Jeff Torbor, who would eventually become a major league manager. He caught this perfect game of Koufax, and 8 years later, he would catch the first of Nolan Ryan's 7 no-hitters. Next, it's September 17th, 1934. It'll be 90 years ago next weekend. John Baylor sits in a Washington, D.C. waiting room, anticipating the birth of his child. The delivery room nurse comes out and tells Baylor he is the father of a healthy, happy baby boy. Wishing to preserve the exact moment in his life that he became a father, John Baylor checks his watch for the correct time. The watch is an Elgin. That's how the all-time basketball legend got his name, Elgin Baylor. And finally, you don't have to go back in history for some of these stories. They're happening all the time. This one, just last week, and it involves former first-round NFL draft choice Gosder Cherilus. Big, strong man. Well, he's one of the passengers on a flight from Boston to Dublin. And the flight gets delayed and delayed again and finally takes off at 2:30. But it's not going to make it to Dublin. About an hour into the flight turns around and returns to Boston. And police enter the plane to take possession of Cherilus, who'd become angry, abusive, and at one point stood up and urinated on one of his fellow passengers. The next day, Cherilus issued a statement saying that the flight had been unexpectedly delayed for approximately 4 hours and did not take off till about 12:30 a.m. Knowing this would be a long flight and he was tired, Cherilus decided to take a sleeping medication, which he doesn't normally use. And he said that's what happened with his behavior. Let me tell you something. I've needed to take sleeping medication now for over 20 years. And let me assure you of something. Never, ever in the history of me going to sleep on planes or in jungles or in my own bed have I ever gotten angry and abusive and stood up and urinated on anybody. Hey, You, you just can't make this stuff up.
Today's episode brought to you by Fluent Financial, Retire Sooner, Better Lifestyle, by Star Power, Love Where You Live, and by Bob's Steak and Chop House.
Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoy our episodes, please hit follow, and a fresh new podcast will be delivered to you every weekday. And should you know a friend or friends who might like our work, please share it with them. Also, we'd love your questions and comments. We do a question and answer session every 2 to 3 weeks on the podcast. Send us your thoughts on X, that used to be Twitter, to @Norm's Clubhouse. That's @Norm's Clubhouse. Just Wondering's executive producer and sometime on-air contributor is my wife, Mary Dans. Just Wondering's produced by Mike Mattern and technically directed by Tim Ham of FanStream Sports. I'm Norm Hitzges, and every day I'll be just wondering about something.
And I'm Mary Hitchkus, and I'm just wondering too.